Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Rachel Vinman,
I'm Amanda Weinstein.
and this is the Suburban Women Problem. How are you, Amanda? Actually, I kind of know how you are because I want to talk to you and ask you about some of the DMs and I don't know, other messages that you've been receiving because I want to talk about that.
Yeah, so we have a very heated school board race right now, on top of just, my husband announcing he's running for the state senate. So that's in there in the mix as well. Our school board race right now is, do we want to build up our schools and our children, or do we want to tear them all down and tear them apart?
Yeah.
And you
Hmm.
have some people who just want to tear it all down and who have admitted to me they just want to tear it all down. And I was like, sorry, we're not going to agree because I'm not into tearing our schools down because this is kind of important for our children. Let's build them up. And the response is personal attacks. It's their first go to, that they apparently try and find who my neighbors are. They take pictures of my car. They try and call my neighbors. They try and find out who my kids' teachers are to go talk to my kids' teachers. It gets so creepy how much they want to get into personal attacks, find out about all of my personal information, and then they want to tell me, like, well, we really don't care about you. We just spend all our free time finding out who your neighbors are and talking to them. And I'm like, well, then you kind of do care about me a little bit.
This is not normal. This is not the way it should be,
No,
but
this should not be
we have
normal.
kind of normalized it, right? Like I mean, we haven't normalized it, but there's a degree to which we've accepted it, wouldn't you say?
It's interesting that they think that when you're in any kind of political spotlight, or if you even just put your opinion out there, that somehow that entitles them to your personal information and to spread your personal information. And I think it just adds to the chaos and the ugliness we get everywhere, at every level, from school board, state to federal.
The ramifications are a lot of people don't want to run because who wants to invite that crazy into their life?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you
I
only get
mean,
insane people. Only insane
yeah,
people can
you
run
get
for this
people
stuff.
who have more self confidence and appetite for nonsense than I do. And you know that shouldn't be the way it is because running for school board, being on the school board should be low stakes. You just have to be willing to do the work and doing what takes, but it shouldn't be such a smear campaign or such an impact on your family's life, like in the scheme of things. And that's what they're making this. And also, we've talked about it like every week for I don't know how many weeks, but in Ohio you have a question on the ballot about reproductive rights, and you also have an adopted son rather, and you shared a message with our group chat that you received. Can you read that to us?
Yeah. So a lot of the pro life, again, like I am vocal that I think we need to be protecting women's lives, and that I think that this issue, one, in protecting reproductive freedom, is about lives of women and even babies. And the data is there, right? We know that states that ban abortions have higher maternal mortality, they also have higher infant mortality. And this just kind of like blows the minds of some pro-life people that this can even be true, and it is. And so the only comeback they can have is, well, why did you adopt a son? Like, that must be something that we don't understand. Like, how can someone who is supporting reproductive freedom also be supporting, have an adopted son? And they bring that right into it as if, first of all, I don't really see the connection that they do, but it also kind of blows their mind, and they don't believe, like, well, actually, I was raised to be pro-life. I just also believe that whatever my beliefs are shouldn't be mandated on other people. And my view of pro-life might be slightly different than yours is on pro-life because I actually look to the research and data. But regardless, like, there's no reason to bring my son or his birth mother into this, or my family. Like, that's just not part of issue one. You can read the language, whether it's on the ballot or the actual language. Nothing about that language says anything about my adopted son. There's no reason to bring that into an argument. But I've noticed time and time again, it's their first response. It's not even their second response to attack me personally, to attack my children, to name call. The name calling is like ridiculous. All of the things that I have been called lately.
I wonder where they learned that. That's so
Hmm.
weird because I mean, who could have like really pointed
Mm.
to name calling and belittling people? Gonna have to do some research on that. Maybe we'll get back to you next week. But I mean, but it was normalized. It was normalized from 2016, or was it 2015? I don't know when Trump announced his candidacy. I guess 2015 to now. That that is an acceptable way to treat your political opponents. And to that end, we saw this last week. I mean, look, I'm glad that Jim Jordan didn't win the speakership. Now we have like a 9-person race. I'm sure we'll get to that in a minute. But the part I want to talk about now of this, which just, is totally segues from what you were saying, I mean, about your personal experience, is that some of the people House Republicans who voted against Jim Jordan being the speaker, received death threats from the MAGAs out there. They received death threats.
And their family did. Not even just them.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
reaching out to
And their
their
family.
family.
Yeah.
It's like, first of all, death threats, bad for regardless of who it is. But like reaching out to like someone's wife to threaten them is just, I mean, Rachel, I know you know a lot about that as well. Like, this is just.
Well, yeah, I actually wrote about it on Substack and I kind of tongue in cheek, as if like one of these spouses was coming over to my house, and kind of my imaginary conversation that I would have with them. You know me. I mean, I would try to be a good hostess in my house, of course, and not make anyone feel uncomfortable, because that's not what a good hostess does. But I would be remiss if I were to host someone to not bring up the kind of obvious, point that this is entirely predictable. Everyone on the Republican side at this point is only protected as long as they stay in the confines of the tribe. And that means lockstep, exactly what they want. Yep. Useful idiots, whatever term you want to use. But they are only useful as long as they do that. The moment that they take one step outside the circle, or even look outside the circle, it's all over. You're dead to them. That was a poor choice of words.
Absolutely right. They're valued for their use to them. And once that use goes away, you are dead to them, and they will make sure you know they're dead to them, or they want you dead to them.
And, I mean, like, look, when it's you receiving the death threats, you take it seriously. And I know this personally, but it's meant to intimidate. And it does. I think it absolutely serves its purpose, that people will that people will be less willing to go against the grain, because, what kind of price do they have to pay?
And I think it's interesting. So we were talking about, Paul Ryan made an interesting point about all of the chaos going on with this speaker vote, that he basically said what's wrong with the Republican Party is it's populism untethered to principles, and it's really a party of cult personality populism, which is right, basically saying that they have no set of real principles that they follow, which leads to no idea of what the actual problems of people are, which means they have no idea what actual policies should be. And I think it's kind of funny that, this is all the chaos you see when you do have a party that's just cult personality populism. I'm
going to hurt myself rolling my eyes this much. It's going to cause permanent injury. This is Paul Ryan, guys. Paul Ryan. From his lofty seat in the Senate, looking down on the House, telling them everything they're doing wrong, which is exactly what Paul Ryan believes. But Paul Ryan believes it. Honestly, he was kind of an OG guy in this way. Like, he was one of the first people to believe it. But now, it's one thing if you have like some outliers doing it, and they can be like, I'm a libertarian, and, they can do this. But then when you have them all doing it, it creates like chaos becomes the everyday norm, not just like a person coming in to give, a speech on the Senate or House floor and kind of like, okay, Paul, we heard you, enough. Now it's like what everyone is doing. And again, I think they do it because it's like this weird, like, I'm loyal also. Listen to my sycophantic speech. Which, by the way, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Elise Stefanik's speech last week. I mean, girl, like just practice. Maybe in front of a mirror. You can just record yourself on your phone. I don't know. I mean, just maybe something, but it was
Wait, I
really
missed
bad.
this. I missed this speech. What happened?
I mean, it was just so bad. And can I just say, the Democrats are so united in their speeches last week, and they're nominating Hakeem Jeffries.
We're united behind actual principles,
Yeah.
solving actual policies
Yeah.
for people.
No, I mean, they're stating things, not being like, oh, he was I mean, this is what they said about Jim Jordan 2 or 3 days in a row. He was a wrestling coach and a wrestler, so he'll take it to the mats. Wow. Did you
That's his big big policy stance. We're gonna take it to the mat.
Yeah, can I just say my father was a football coach.
I don't fix inflation.
And both my brothers have coached. They both have actually coached wrestling as well, like on a pretty high level. But I loved my father and I love both my brothers. I don't think any of that experience qualifies them to serve in Congress, but we have a lot of coaches. So Tom Emmer, who appears to be, except for the inconvenient fact that he did not buy into the big lie and he was an election denier, he is like pretty loyal Republican, and he might be like the leading candidate when they meet together to see who's going to be the leading candidate for, I guess, this week's speaker vote. And he also was a coach. And I was like, is everyone a coach? I'm a little confused by this. But, and again, I'm not slighting coaches at all by any stretch of the imagination. It's just a weird space we find ourselves in.
Yeah, especially since they seem to be incapable of like coaching their own people.
Yeah,
it is. Vote for a speaker, like get something done. Like, seems like you could use a little coaching, but you'd be
leadership.
They're not the best at
all those things that I think sports are excellent for, and that coaches really kind of bring those personality traits out of people, and yet we have seemed to have found the coaches that don't do that, and we're electing them. We're trying to elect them to some of the most significant positions in Congress.
I know, but they seem to be very good at wanting to coach us on what we should do and what we should think and how we should parent, what books we should or shouldn't read, what parts of history we should talk about or not talk about. But I also think it's kind of interesting the coaching that Moms for Liberty gets from the tons of men that were released from all of their little internal chats that they got all up on a website. Oh, yes. That is juicy. Get a glass of wine.
Very juicy and interesting. Time.
But it's a lot of men. Like,
yes,
I thought this was Moms for Liberty. Yeah. Yes. And it's just Moms for Liberty doing what men tell them to. Mm-hmm. Cool. That sounds like lots of liberty to me.
I was telling my husband about this. He was traveling last week, but I saw it and I sent it to him and we were discussing it. And I mean, I guess he was kind of remarking on the fact that I wouldn't do that even if he asked me. And I was like, yeah, accurate. It's true. And also I thought that their analysis, it kind of made me think like, who's your audience? Is your audience like men? Because the pulling the strings and the things they were suggesting weren't, I didn't think, very compelling for women, and they were missing the mark.
Look at the PTO boards. The PTO boards are mostly women by far. The people in the schools, mostly women. I have noticed more dads being involved, which is great. Dads, I'm proud of you. However, it's still mostly women. And then when I see, our contentious school board race, all of the book banner, extremists, defunding the schools, all of that, all men. They're all men who want to sit up there in the school board and tell a bunch of moms what they should be thinking about their schools, as if we don't already know because we're in there all the time or we're talking to our teachers. It gets a little frustrating. Also, ladies, we need more ladies to run. But that's the hard part. We don't have time.
It is, again, I think it goes back to the way we're treating people. I'll never forget last year when I was talking to some former school board members in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And on one hand, I was so sad that this woman I was talking to had just wrapped up her time and she was not running for re-election. On the other hand, I was so happy for her because she was getting rid of so much chaos and turmoil and stress in her life. And this is why what I always say when people are like, oh, Alex should run for office or I should run for office. I'm like, I'm not interested in that. And I appreciate everyone who does run, but it is just like I feel like I've done that to a point, and I don't want to invite that into my life. Although I think there are many other ways that we can all be active and make a difference. And I know never say never, but right now I'm saying never. and and that doesn't mean it's the only way, but I mean, we all we talk about all the roles we can fill, and some of these people, when you do have someone who's willing to run, especially for school board or something where it's going to be very personal attacks like what you have detailed, Amanda. But I think that's when we really need to show our support the most. Those are the people that we need to support, because they're going out in the community and shopping at the grocery store and Target and wherever, and they're noticed. And, we need to give them support and support them in whatever way we can, which is, both financially and then just, moral support and helping in their campaigns. And that is really meaningful work. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're only 2 weeks away from the election, so it's important to make sure that you and everyone has a plan to vote. If you want some help keeping track of who you've talked to about voting, Red, Wine, and Blue has a fun online tool called Rally Your Squad. It's actually improved voter turnout by up to 10%. So to sign up, you can text the word rally, RALLY, to 59868. Thanks again, and we'll see you again next week on another episode of the Suburban Women Problem.